So I was standing in front of my desk trying to figure out the topic of my next video. A couple of days earlier, I made a survey asking you guys which band or artist you wanted me to tackle next. And out of Julian Casablancas, The Cure, and The Pixies, The Cure came out as the winner of the poll. And then I thought to myself, wow, this is gonna be a tough one. These guys have released 13 albums, went through several musical transformations, and yet they don't have a clear and concise background story. And I've barely listened to their music except for their hits, so if I'm gonna squeeze together a video about The Cure in a week's time, which is pretty freaking fast in terms of research, writing, recording, and editing, then I'm probably gonna hear a lot of this in the comment section.
That's literally taken straight from Wikipedia. It's not Robert Smith, it's Robert Smith, you dumbass. You get everything wrong here.
And sure, I respect those comments on my videos, because there's a level of truth to them, at least to some of them. So instead of watching the documentary videos and reading articles about the band like I do most of the time when researching a new video topic, I decided to go straight to the source. Obviously, it's hard to get an interview with Robert Smith or any of the band members, but what about their fans? They matter just as much in the equation here. So what I did was I made a live stream on September 13th on the channel asking you guys if you could share with me some of your most meaningful memories related to your listening experiences with The Cure. And I ended up getting a lot of private messages on Instagram from people pouring their hearts out about their personal lives and how they related to The Cure's music. And there's two very simple things that I learned about The Cure's fans. Some of them are touched by the sound of the music itself, not paying too much attention to the lyrics. Other fans seem obsessed with Robert Smith's lyrics because they can relate to them on a very deep personal level. One message that stood out to me, and a great example of someone who enjoyed The Cure simply for the sake of their sound, came from a girl that I'll call Larry for the sake of her privacy. So this is what she wrote. The greatest hits of The Cure was the first album I ever bought with my own money. I was 6 years old, it was January 2002, and I was in a random record store with my musician dad. When I got home, I sat down on the floor, put the disc in my jukebox, and listened to the entire thing in one go. One thing to consider is that English isn't my native language, so I didn't understand the lyrics, but the music just spoke to me, especially the slower, more solemn songs like The Forest and Lullaby. The entire album was becoming the backdrop of my tweens and teenage years, especially when I was slipping into depression due to bipolar at age 14. By liking The Cure, I started hanging out with the goth kids, finding friends, and a support system, a way to deal with my depressive episodes. I eventually bought all of their albums, of course. To Larry, The Cure was something that reminded her of her childhood. In her teenage years, she could put on The Cure's music and feel a sense of comfort in times of mental instability. She arguably also based her choice of friends from her taste in music as well. When hearing her story, it becomes very clear that The Cure's music is very influential. And like she said, English wasn't her mother tongue, but something about their sound really resonated with her and how she felt, and made her feel better. The Cure had already been playing for 2 decades by then, both throughout the 90s and the 80s. So there's something very timeless about their music. But what makes it so timeless? Personally, I think it has something to do with Robert Smith's lyrics. To prove my point, let's move away from Larry's Instagram message over to the music video for Pictures of You that you can find on YouTube. Near the top of the comment section, I found a comment by Stefania Lehman, and it's not just any type of comment. It's a tragic story about 2 of Steph's friends, and here's how it goes. A few days back, the girlfriend of an extremely close friend of mine had her life cut short at the age of 25. They had been together for nearly 5 years, and I remember the two of them before they began their beautiful relationship together. 2 of their years were spent long distance, but by chance, she moved to his city for work, but also to allow them to be closer together. Tragically, a few days before, she was in her car on her way home, talking to her younger sister on her phone, when she was caught in the middle of a crossfire and killed. All for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I still feel a sense of shock. I didn't speak to her as much as I should have, looking back on it now. She was a beautiful, hardworking, intelligent, and passionate young woman that touched so many lives. Never had I ever heard a negative word or phrase ever uttered by anybody about her. Her boyfriend, by far the most stable and supportive man I've ever met in my entire life, the love of his life, was just unfairly taken away from him, all because of a stray bullet fired by some member of a gang trying to prove his worth behind the barrel of a gun. Although I feel shock, anger, and sadness over what happened, is absolutely peanuts compared to what he's currently facing and going through. I spoke to him on the phone the night before she passed away in the hospital. I'd never heard such a stable and calm influence in my life sound so vulnerable. It absolutely broke my heart. Later on, I scrolled through the albums on my phone. I realized just how many photos he'd send me of his times together with her. Like I mentioned, I didn't speak to her a lot, but with all the stories I'd hear, all the pictures I'd see, and the moments I'd be informed about, it's almost like if I'd known her on a close personal basis. This song, as much as I've loved Robert Smith and The Cure since I was in middle school, has helped me cope. I've cried and cried listening to this, but it has helped me facing the reality of life. So please, cherish those close to you. Do not ever forget to tell your family and loved ones that you love them and cherish them. You just never know how much longer you might have left with them. Oren, we love you and will miss you. With love, Steph. Timeless. Going back, I mentioned that The Cure's music is timeless, and the reason why it is timeless is because Robert Smith is singing and telling stories about people and the longing for another person. This is something we'll all experience throughout our lives, as we all are dependent on other people. It doesn't matter what race, gender, or sexual orientation you have. At some point in your life, you're going to miss someone. This is why so many fans are attracted to Robert Smith's lyrics in particular, because he writes lyrics with universal appeal. As the first verse of the song starts, Smith talks about the relationship he had with his wife, Mary. I imagine Smith sitting alone, flipping through a book of old photos of them. He feels alone, so alone that his thoughts and feelings start to wander when he looks at the photos. He daydreams about Mary for days and weeks. And in the end, the pictures becomes the highlight of his day, offering a glimpse of light into his dark loneliness. The lyrics are happy, yet sad, and it's the same impression I get from the music itself. Smith's voice is the most visceral part of the whole song, and his singing style is very unique. It's almost like he's on the verge of crying with every phrase that he delivers. So I definitely say that this song in particular, and many of their other songs in general, are very melancholic and sad, but they offer these undertones of positivity and hope at the same time. They offer a very simple truth. You're not alone, and someone else is feeling the exact same loneliness as you do. From heading straight into the source of their popularity by talking to their fans, through reading their comments and stories, I think I learned a few things about The Cure, some very simple facts, but true facts. Their music is filled with emotional energy that resonates with a lot of people. Some fans are very into their music on an intuitive level. Other fans resonate deeply with Robert Smith's lyrics because he sings about troubles that we all have and makes us feel less alone by doing so. Maybe you grew up scared of Robert Smith when you were little because he looked like Edward Scissorhands, or just because he didn't look friendly. But I think a lot of young men and women grew up and found his words and the band's music to bring a sense of familiar hopelessness and beauty. A big shout out to Philip from Volksgeist for helping me with the voiceover in this video. He's got some awesome video essays over on his channel, so make sure you click his icon on the screen right here to check them out. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching as well. Let me know in the comments what band or artist you want me to feature in future videos. And yeah, that's it. Cheers from Oslo, Norway. Until next time.